Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBassVideos.com coming at you today with another lesson. And this is the first lesson in my Functional Diatonic Harmony course. This particular lesson is on the 2-5-1 progression in a major key area. So grab your bass and let's get started. Take a major scale and harmonize it. After we do that, we'll come to realize that there's only 4 different chord qualities within the harmonization of a major scale. That's going to be the major 7th, the minor 7th, the dominant 7th, and the minor 7 flat 5. So if we do a quick review, I take the key of C, and I'm just going to harmonize the scale. And the first chord from the root of the scale is going to be a major 7th chord. Okay, this from the 2nd degree of the scale, I've got a minor 7th chord. From the 3rd degree, I have a minor 7th chord. From the 4th degree, I have a major 7th chord. From the 5th degree, I have a dominant 7th chord. From the 6th degree, I have a minor 7th chord. And then from the 7th degree, I have a minor 7 flat 5. And then I'm back to the root. So what I want you to pay particularly close attention to is the idea that within all of those 7 chords, harmonized from the 7 notes of the scale, is that there's only 4 different chord types there. What you'll come to realize as this course progresses is that all of these chords are interdependent with each other. But an important point just to point out at this stage, so we can really clarify the idea that there's only 4 different chord qualities within the harmonization of a major scale, is that if you look at the chord on the root and the 4th degree, these are the same chord quality. This is a major 7th. So from the root, and then from the 4th, those are both major 7th chords. From the 2nd degree, I have a minor 7th. From the 3rd degree, I have a minor 7th. And then from the 6th degree, I have a minor 7th. Okay? Then, the next 2 chords that are left over is a dominant 7th from the 5th. This isn't repeated. There's only 1 dominant chord within the harmonization, and this is a very important point. And then we have only 1 minor 7 flat 5, and that's from the 7th degree, and that's up here. So what this all boils down to is really having the knowledge that within the harmonization of a major scale, there are only 4 different chord qualities. That would be a major 7th, a minor 7th, a dominant 7th, and a minor 7 flat 5. To identify how chords function in a harmonic progression is by first identifying the dominant 7th chord. There's only 1 dominant 7th chord within the major scale, and this is the chord that leads us back to the tonic of the key. The root motion of resolving down a perfect 5th or up a perfect 4th is one of the cornerstones of the Western music major-minor harmonic system. So if I take a D minor 7th chord, which is the 2 minor 7 in the key of C, and then I move that down a perfect 5th to a G7, which is the 5-7 in the key of C, and then I move it back up a perfect 4th to the C major 7, which is the 1 major 7, this gives me the most common harmonic progression in Western music, which is called the 2-5-1 progression. And we need to know that the chord qualities are the 2 is a minor 7, the 5 is a dominant 7, and the 1 is a major 7. Now the outcome of this creates a consistent root motion between each chord, which is either down a perfect 5th or up a perfect 4th. This is the most common root motion that occurs in Western music, and this is of great importance to us bass players because we're playing the bass lines. 2 minor 7, 5-7 to 1 major 7 chord progression is the most definitive progression that outlines the tonality from a major key center. This progression is so common that you will need to memorize this in the same way that a young math student learns his times tables. With time, you will come to realize that close to 90% of all harmony is based on either a 2-5-1 or a variation of a 2-5-1. Now, as these lessons progress, we're going to get into the discussion of these variations in some detail. I want you to remember that the reason the majority of harmony is based on a 2-5-1 progression is that there's a faster recognition of a major key area when these specific chords are used. When learning this progression, we must be able to recognize any combination of these chords and in any key. This enables us to determine momentary key areas at any given point of a composition. So what I want you to do is I want you to download the attached PDF worksheet, and I want you to write out all the combinations of the 2-5-1 patterns that are on that sheet. And then I also want you to practice this mentally so you can figure out these chords in sequence and out of sequence. So a good mental drill is you pick a key. So let's just pick the key of E flat major. You find out what the 5 chord is. So don't reference the 1 chord or don't reference the 2 first. Reference the 5 chord, because it's very important to find those 5-7 chords in a composition when you're doing a functional harmonic analysis. So we take the 5-7 chord, which is B flat 7, and you just have to know this with every key. Okay, and then what I want you to do is say, well, what's the related 2 chord to that B flat 7? And the related 2 minor 7th chord is going to be F minor 7, because we're thinking about it in the key of E flat. So this is very important for you to do. So we had E flat, we figured out B flat 7, so there's the chord, okay, which is our 5-7 chord, and then our related 2 chord is the F minor 7, and then that's going down to the key of E flat major. So this way you're thinking about it a little out of sync, and this is quite important to nail that 5 chord first, reference the related 2, and then understand what key that belongs to. So let's take another key. Let's take the key of B major, okay? The 5-7 chord is going to be F sharp 7. Again, I just need to know that. I don't want to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or have some kind of weird systematic approach that takes me time. I just want to know what that relationship is. How do you do that? You have to memorize it. So you have to, a lot of repetition is required to get this down. So F sharp 7 is the 5-7. What's my related to? C sharp minor 7. Okay, and that relates to the key of B major. So I want you to do this day in and day out. Really get this down. Practice this. And what you're going to find is that this is going to be extremely useful when we start to analyze chord progressions, and do this in an analytical way and also on the fly in a performance way. The role of the bass player is to create bass lines based on the chord progression. Although it is important to state the root of each chord, many bass players can't play anything else and become hamstringed creatively as a result. A simple solution is a voice leading principle between chords that move down a perfect 5th or up a perfect 4th, just like the 2-5-1 progression that we're working on. So if I take a 2-5-1 in C and I start on D minor 7 and I play the root, the flat 3, the 5, and the flat 7, it's here that I want to use this voice leading principle into the first beat of the next chord. I've played 4 beats, that's 1 bar. My next chord's going to be G7, and instead of going into the root, I'm only a half step away from the 3rd, and this sounds really cool. So what I'm going to do is go root, flat 3, 5, flat 7, and then I'm going to go 3, and this is 3 of the G7 chord, and then I'm just going to step down the scale. So I'm going to go B, A, G, F, and that takes me all the way back down to the 7th. So I go 3, and then I'm going to the 2nd, to the root, and now I'm on the 7th. Now here's where this voice leading principle takes place again to the next chord, which is going to be the 1 major 7. I'm going to go from 7 of the G7 to the 3rd of the C major 7. And then then to finish this line off, we've got 2 bars of this. I'm just going to play a broken arpeggio line. So I'm going to go the third, the root, third, fifth, and then root, 7, 5, 3. Just outlines the chord. Okay, so again I have this. What's cool about this is that this gives me some more melodicism to my bass line, and it enables me to play with a little bit greater depth harmonically because I'm not always playing the first beat with the root of every chord. It's important to point out that this voice leading principle is based on the use of what is called guide tones. The guide tones are the 3rd and the 7ths of these particular chord qualities, the minor 7, the dominant 7, and the major 7th. And what guide tones are is they define the actual chord quality. They determine, is it major, is it minor, or is it dominant? And this is extremely important when we're working with these different lines and looking at how this adds a greater depth to the melodicism of your bass lines. What we're going to do now is we're going to play this over a backing track. But just before we do that, I want to outline some fingering possibilities or some option awareness fingering possibilities for you guys to take a look at so you can get around your bass with this progression, because we want to do this in every key. So if I take the first 2 keys that we're going to go through, from the key of C and then move down to the key of B flat. If I have this here and I play this from the 4th finger, and then I go to B flat, the most economical fingering that I can go for from here is played here with my 1st finger. This way. So, and we're going to keep moving down in major 2nds. So from B flat that goes to A flat. So here I'm back to this fingering. Okay, and then now I go to G flat. And I want to start my 2 chord. It's a little trick. It's always starting the 2 chord on the root of the previous key. So the previous key we did was A flat. I'm moving down to G flat. So the minor 7th chord of the G flat major is going to be A flat minor. So I'm here in this pattern. Now here's where I have to use some clever octave displacement because I run out of notes. If I had a 5 string, I'd have that low string and I could do the same fingering, but I don't. So from here, I'm going to move up. So I go like this. And this enables me to have the same notes, but I'm just turning the pattern around. And it gives me kind of a different sound. It's quite cool, the idea of that. So from there, we move down to the key of E, and I could maybe keep it down in this low register, but at some point you might have to shift registers, and it's good to do this just to get around your bass and see how everything works. And we're not trying to make it too complicated today, and it's not really adhering strictly to that pentapositional concept, but you'll see relationships of that as we do that. Remember, the penta concept is just, a part of the greater whole. So if I move up to the key of E and go up here with this fingering, then I go to D major, and I'm here with that economical fingering. Okay. Now, if I did continue going down in major 2nds, I'll end up back with the key of C. But we've already done C, and also I've only done 6 keys. So what happens with the descending cycle of major 2nds is that once I go through all the keys, then I need to move down a half step from my starting key, which was C, so down 1/2 step is B major, and then go step down in major 2nds another 6 keys, and then I would have done all 12 keys. And this is a cool exercise because it gets you looking at these progressions in different orders. And a lot of tunes are based on this descending major second deal. So the next key is B. So I'm right here, so I'm going to do this. Okay, then my next key is going to be A. So again, I want to do one of these octave displacement deals here. Okay, and then the next key after that is the key of G. So I'm just going to move down here and do that one there. Then I'm going to move again for the key of F, and I'm going to go here. Okay, and then I go to the key of E flat. And then the last key is D flat. And I'm here. Now please remember, this isn't the only way to do it, and by all means experiment with this. This is why I call these optional awareness fingering patterns. You don't have to do it exactly like this. I just want to get you working on your fretboard. I want you to see the ins and outs of moving through these different keys with these generic ideas. This is very helpful because it gets you to hear the progression. One of the main focal points of this lesson is to be able to recognize any combination of 2 5-1s in different keys, but also to be able to hear it. That's why we're playing these exercises. So I'm going to demonstrate this over this backing track. Afterwards, like all the previous lessons, you can do the same thing. But make sure you get this down thoroughly before you play it with the backing track. I'll see you on the other side. Wraps up today's lesson. But before we go, let's take a look at what we've learned today. In today's lesson, we've learned how to recognize a 2-5-1 progression in any major key area. We've also learned how to voice lead our bass lines to create a smoother transition while moving from one chord to the next. We've also learned with this voice leading principle how not to end up always landing on the root of the first beat of every bar. We then put this into a drill. We used a backing track, and this was taking us through every key through the cycle of major seconds. As always, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively. I'll be checking in with you next week with lesson 2, so hang with me.